Sorry guys, I've been a bit run down lately, not feeling a bit sick, a bit sunburnt as well on the face. So mind that I'm not going to be exactly like the best health this video, but it's all good. A lot of music has been dropping recently. I don't need a hood. Well, a lot of music has been dropping recently, and there's one album that I came across that actually took me by surprise, and I didn't expect to be as good as it was. And that is Grey Area by Little Simz. So if you don't know who Little Simz is, So Grey Area is the third studio album by a British grime / hip hop artist called Little Simz. And I discovered Little Simz about last year when I watched this interview that I stumbled across. And I kind of checked out her music, and I felt a bit like she has a lot of potential, but there's just something that's kind of missing. Then this album dropped, and she is really underrated now. Like, she's such an underrated artist now. Like, there was nothing in her previous work that when I listened to it, that really got me like going like, wow. And this album, Grey Area, made me change my whole opinion on her. So I didn't initially have a opinion on this album because I was just kind of like checking it out when I was looking through like music that was been released, and it like released around the same time as Offset's Father of Four, so it's kind of overshadowed by that. But as soon as the first track on the album started with the heavy drum kicks, it instantly took my attention. So actually, after listening to this whole album, it's only a 10-track album, I'm pretty sure, I was actually blown away from how intense this whole album sounded. And so because of that, I kind of looked into it more. And it kind of sounded like throughout this whole album, she was kind of grabbing me and like forcing me to give her my attention. And it was really interesting how like intense and forced, and that's a lot thanks to a harsh British accent. So what is this album essentially about? Based off the title, which is Grey Area, apparently it's meant to represent her life living in her 20s, being a young adult and facing life, how harsh it is. She's kind of describing her life as not like black and white, where this thing's this and the other thing is that. Like, they're not separate, it's all just this mix of black and white, which ends up making grey. So she's living in this grey area, which is kind of like a mess, and she's kind of living in this mess of an environment, trying to establish her independence as a young adult and figuring out her approach to everything. And I felt like this album touching on her independence was really relatable because it felt like the way she delivered this whole album and the whole concept, it felt like she wasn't just empowering herself, it also felt like she was empowering like women like her. And that's because she sounds confident, angry, but she's also sounding really realistic and mature with everything. And she sounds like she's really taking advantage of what she's capable of and spitting in like the face of the doubters that look down on her because she is who she is. But she isn't as like threatening, as more like acknowledging what she has experienced and what those like think of her. It really felt like this album is really empowering for a lot of people, and especially herself. So having this really strong concept of this Grey Area, the thing that really hooked me with this all was the sound she came out with it that really complemented the concept and complemented who she was and her sound and everything. It all started with the drum kicks and this roaring bass at the start that grabs your attention, and it's quite harsh, angry, intense. But it's really interesting the way she expands the sound with the instrumentation to newer areas. It starts off like real grimy and like harsh, but then it goes to more lighter areas and it sounds more, and it ends up sounding more jazzy and more than just a roaring bass. And the roaring bass and the harsh drum kicks are still there, but then they end up becoming more as like a backbone for all the sound she's creating with these instruments. It kind of sounds a bit like an R&B record as well as a hip-hop record. Like, it's quite alternative. And essentially with all these like this piano and guitar work being used within this album, it ends up making this whole album sound so much more lively and free. I feel like that sound and that feeling kind of replicates how she feels and what she's talking about. And at the end of this album, it felt like a journey and a harsh check into the reality that Lil Simz lives in. It also feels like a realization that within this great area she lives in, there is always a way to like find herself. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to this concept. Really, this album really surprised me. I feel like it deserves a lot more attention than it really has gotten, and that's quite like stupid of me kind of saying, because I didn't exactly look forward to this album or anything, and I just kind of stumbled across it, and I'm really happy that I did, because this really blew me away. I felt like Lil Simz has really established how talented she is as an artist, and it's kind of like she's figuring out how more and more how her style can be like improved upon, and this was a massive jump in that direction. This is a really good album that I really recommend you guys listen to, and I feel like it deserves a lot more attention. In the end, I overall give this album an 8.5 out of 10. It is really good, and I really recommend you guys check it out. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back for more videos soon, more reviews. Hit a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and have a great day. Peace.